Hi, my name's Daryl, and here's your Jeep news for April 26th. So my first story really is about the concept vehicles that Jeep introduced at Easter Jeep Safari. Now, I was fortunate enough to be there. It was kind of last minute that I decided to go, and I just really wanted to, kind of check out Moab and check out, all the Jeeps that were there, do a little bit of camping, and visit the expo, and it was a lot of fun. So Jeep, one of the things that Jeep does at Easter Jeep Safari is they introduce concept vehicles. And this year, they introduced 7 concept vehicles, but 3 of them were based on the Gladiator. So I think I'm really happy to see that Jeep hasn't given up on the Gladiator. They've had some problems with sales, and I think the issue with sales maybe has to do with the pricing that they have been charging for the Gladiator, as well as the lack of powertrain, different powertrain options, only having the V6 Pentastar available. But hopefully Jeep will address that in the next generation, and maybe these concept vehicles might give us an idea on what to expect. So in the first one that I want to talk about, this one is the Convoy. And this is a really cool looking Jeep Gladiator. So you've got these huge 40-inch tires. You've got these brown canvas top and doors. You've got, of course, it's lifted. It's got a winch. But one of the things that kind of separates this from the other concept vehicles is the grille is different. So Jeep did a survey of existing Gladiator owners about a month ago or so, and they were asking about, for the next generation of Gladiator, what would they like to see? They had some powertrain kind of questions on there, but one of the things were about the look and feel of the Gladiator, and whether or not they wanted it to continue its theme of looking very similar to a Jeep Wrangler, or if they wanted it kind of to be its own thing. And you can see here, it's very much its own thing. And I am sort of hoping that for the next generation of Gladiator, they decide to do this, to make the Gladiator and make it a little bit more distinguishable from a Jeep Wrangler. But I really like the look of this. The next one, this one is the Honcho. And it's actually based on the Wrangler JLU platform as opposed to the Gladiator. But they put a long bed, and they made this a 2-door single cab Gladiator truck. So truck owners are always saying, they always want kind of a single cab, 2-door kind of street truck or something that they can do a bunch of work in, but they want it to be relatively inexpensive. If you haven't been following the news about the Slate, there is a brand new pickup truck that's coming in 2027. It's actually backed by Jeff Bezos and Amazon. It's an EV, so I know most Jeep folks don't really care much about an EV, but this is a 2-door pickup truck that's going to cost about $20,000. So, they are taking kind of advantage, or they're putting down the federal tax incentive that you would get for a battery electric vehicle. But yeah, to get a 2-door pickup truck, with 300 miles of range, that's got really a lot of horsepower. It can do all the truck things that you need it to do. So I really hope that if Jeep does decide to do something like this theme, that they make it relatively inexpensive. So, take a regular platform, change it up, really slim down the options, slim down, how much it costs to manufacture this vehicle, make it relatively inexpensive. I think they might be able to sell a bunch of these. So that would be really cool. Now, switching from Easter Jeep Safari, well, actually not yet. Let's talk about the Jeep Wagoneer. So they also introduced the Jeep Wagoneer Overland Edition at Easter Jeep Safari, and I think they also introduced it at the New York Auto Show. And nothing really new here, but what they did was they made it really easy for you to make your Wagoneer an Overland Edition. You could, in the past, you could, add a bunch of different options to make it more Overland capable, but it would cost you a lot of money. This one, they've got basically everything wrapped up in one package, which I think is really cool. So what this Overland Edition gives you is it gives you 32-inch all-terrain tires. So it can handle most of your kind of off-road duties. It gives you a quadralift air suspension with 10 inches of ground clearance and a cushier ride. It gives you the Quadra 4x4 low-range transfer case and a limited slip differential. It also has a tow package that lets you tow 10,000 pounds. It's got a black roof that's normally reserved for the Grand Wagoneer. And it also has black trim with fender flares and a lower fascia. It also has a roof rack with crossbars and leather and a big moonroof. So yeah, lots of really nice stuff in a package. Now, it's still pretty darn expensive. $72K is about what the MSRP is, but it does save you quite a bit over having to add these options by yourself. So it would cost you over 10 grand to do that. Just to outfit a Overland 2 with all of this equipment, but with the Overland edition, it only cost you an extra $5,795. So pretty good deal. So if you are interested in doing an Overland in your Wagoneer, this is definitely something that you should check out. Now, since we're talking about the Wagoneer, let's talk about something that was spotted. So if you don't know, I love plug-in hybrids. I've been waiting for a plug-in hybrid pickup truck, and I've been really looking forward to the Ram 1500 RamCharger. Well, if you don't know, there's going to be a Jeep Wagoneer 4xe that's actually based on that same platform. And our friends over at Mopar Insiders, they were able to get a couple of spy shots of that new vehicle that's coming in 2027. Now, I think it's actually going to be available a little bit earlier than that. I'm still waiting for pricing on the Ram 1500 RamCharger, and I would imagine that the pricing on this Wagoneer is going to be a little bit more than the RamCharger. But I'm really excited about this particular technology. It's got almost 650 horsepower and over 700 miles of range. And basically, it's a battery electric vehicle with dual motors that power both the front and rear wheels. But the difference is you have a Pentastar engine up front, and when the battery runs out of range after about 140 miles, basically the Pentastar engine kicks on and it starts charging the battery. So it's really, really cool technology. Looking forward to seeing this both in the Ram 1500 RamCharger as well as this Wagoneer 4xe. So it's going to be really cool. Now, sticking with Mopar Insiders, they actually got another spy shot of the Jeep Cherokee Hybrid Edition. So they discontinued the Jeep Cherokee, what, a year and a half ago or so, 2 years ago. They're coming back with the Jeep Cherokee, but this time it's going to be only in hybrid form. So it's going to have, I believe, a 1.6 liter turbocharged engine that's going to be the powertrain for this. And it's going to have a 3-speed kind of hybrid automatic transmission or transmission. I don't know if it's 3-speed automatic transmission, or I'm not exactly sure, but it's basically based for hybrid vehicles, and Stellantis has been working on this particular transmission for their hybrid vehicles. And this is kind of what it looks like. It's based on the STLA large platform, which is what the Wagoneer S is based upon. So it's a little bit bigger than the previous Jeep Cherokee. You know, we don't really know much about that 1.6 liter turbocharged engine and what, you know, how much power it's going to come just with the engine. And so we don't really know what the overall performance figures are going to be for this hybrid powertrain, as well as, you know, kind of the gas mileage. But they are going to be introducing this year. So by later in 2025, probably towards the end of the year, this vehicle is going to be available. So it's going to get probably pretty decent performance, probably somewhere in the range of 250, 275 horsepower, probably going to get really good gas mileage, up to 28, 30 miles per gallon, I would imagine. And it's going to have that, you know, same transfer case, the 4x4 transfer case that Jeeps are famous for, so it can do some off-roading. So yeah, I'm really excited to see this vehicle. It's going to be a little less expensive, so it's going to be for folks that really want to spend a little bit less money on their Jeep but still get a capable vehicle. This is going to be an option for them, so I'm pretty excited to see this. Now, in my next news story, let's talk about the 2026 Grand Cherokee. So if you don't know, they actually stopped production of the Grand Cherokee recently. So this is actually from Mopar Insiders. The plant work paused production temporarily at the Detroit Assembly Complex, basically to get ready for the new 2026 Jeep Grand Cherokee. So some of the things that they're going to be doing is making some changes just to the overall design of the Grand Cherokee to make it, somewhat consistent with the new Jeeps that are coming out. So the Grand Cherokee doesn't look, kind of old. But the biggest thing that they're doing with the Grand Cherokee is they are updating the drivetrain. So previously, the Grand Cherokee came with the V6 Pentastar as well as the 5.7 liter Hemi V8. Supposedly, those are going away and it's going to be replaced with this GME T4 Evo engine, which is a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine that makes around 300 horsepower, probably a little bit more torque than that. And it's somewhat similar to its competition. So if you look at the Ford Explorer ST, it makes 300 horsepower with this 2.3 liter EcoBoost engine. So it'll make it, somewhat similar to those. But the problem is that V6 Pentastar, it can tow with the tow package 6,200 pounds, and with the 5.7 liter V8, it can tow 7,500 pounds. So I'm really worried about whether or not that 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, if it's going to have enough oomph to do those towing duties that both the Pentastar as well as the 5.7 liter Hemi could do. Now, the one thing I will say is that this is going to be a standard output power plant. So that kind of gives me a little bit of a hint that there might also be a high output version of that 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. But that kind of worries me a little bit as well because, if they boost the performance of that 4-cylinder 2-liter even more, that's kind of a small displacement engine. And is it going to be able to handle the towing duties? You're going to have a lot of cooling in place in order for that to happen. And, is it going to have the longevity of both that Pentastar and the 5.7 liter V8? So we're not really sure. I mean, I think this is what they're planning on doing. I just don't know if they're going to make some, changes in that direction. They've talked about producing that 5.7 liter V8 in the United States and putting it in additional vehicles. They're going to be putting it relatively soon in the new in the Ram 1500. And so perhaps it's going to continue to live on with that Grand Cherokee, but, nobody knows for sure until, they actually start building it and making it available to consumers. But it's certainly going to be interesting. My last story is really about the tariffs, the upcoming tariffs on May 3rd. So President Trump, he had announced tariffs on car parts that are imported into the United States that manufacturers use to build new vehicles. So both Stellantis and Ford, they have been in the middle of a kind of an advertising campaign, kind of touting their American heritage, to kind of, I guess, give some comfort to consumers that, these vehicles are built in the United States, and also to, somewhat to influence Trump and the administration. It takes a little bit of time in order for auto manufacturers to move all of their supply chains in order to, build everything here in the United States. And could be that this is having some effect. This article talks about President Trump and is considering pausing his auto tariffs as the world economy, kind of has a whiplash. He says, I'm looking at something to help the car companies with it. He said they need a little bit of time because they're going to make them here, but they need a little bit of time. So I'm talking about things like that. And Matt Blunt, he's the president of the American Automotive Policy Council. He says there's increasing awareness among the administration that broad tariffs on parts could undermine our shared goal of building and thriving and growing American auto industries. And many of these supply chain transitions will take time. So hopefully, I guess, a little bit calmer and a little bit of being a little bit flexible about these upcoming tariffs to, help the auto industry out, to build American. Hopefully, there's going to be some changes announced here relatively soon so the automakers can get back to making automobiles here. You know, they've already made some transitions to start building more in the United States, and hopefully, you know, President Trump can continue to help automakers in aligning with his goals of building here in the United States. So this is Daryl with your Jeep News, and I hope to see you in the next one again very soon.